Hey everybody, welcome to this video here. I just want to do, now that it's been a couple weeks since the special session and the company has come out that came out from about that. We're seeing some stuff going on with these mandates. I just kind of wanted to, I don't really give breakdown video of the entire special session, so I wanted to take a second to kind of break that down for you guys, go over some of any good things that came out of it, some of the iffy things, and some of the bads. So, we're going to take a deep dive into it. But as I'm doing that, feel free to go ahead and hit the share button. Also, as well, as you guys know, we are absolutely up against the establishment, the swamp, whatever you want to call it. And so if you can help out by donating to the campaign, that would be great. I will go ahead and drop that link. It's CooperWriter, the number 4, ky.com/donate. CooperWriter, the number 4, ky.com/donate. And feel free to throw something my way if you kind of want to help out. If you don't, hey, I understand, economic times and everything else. So anyway, so just kind of recap this. So what good things did they do? Let's first start off there, right? So good stuff. So they didn't make anything per se worse. I mean, they had some opportunities to do some things to help fix some of the situations going on around the state that we'll take a deeper dive into. But I can tell you this much. They at least didn't make it worse. So they did not put in any kind of per se statewide mandates as far as that goes. They just continued some basic ones. They did continue the emergency, which we'll kind of dig into. So the goods are that, I do not believe we are any worse off we are now than we would have been if the special session hadn't been called. The problem is what kind of damage, what did they do for it? So first, let me explain. The greater reason why they called this special session had a little bit to do with the health situation, right? It had more to do with this Ford deal than you think it did, and we're gonna take a little dive into that here in a second to explain some of the things. But so good stuff. They didn't really make it worse. Now here's the iffy things. Let's go into this Ford deal here. The real reason why the special session was called. They did barely anything else in the special session. If you really look at it, they kicked the statewide school mandate down to the local level, which, of course, their argument there on that from a lot of legislators is we like smaller government, not bigger government. And I understand that, but at the same time, you are the state legislators, and one can say if you read our state constitution, which requires a publicly funded education, something that needs some adjustment if we're ever going to get full and complete school choice here in Kentucky done. So while I agree somewhat with what you're saying, at the same time, this cop-out of kicking it down lower, listen, half of the state budget goes to public schools. I love it. I love it when I hear people saying we don't fund our public schools enough. Listen, Jefferson County and Lexington, they spend somewhere around $17,000-$18,000 a student on public education. Okay, if public education was a tuition, if we took all, there's 85 that the study I looked at, but if we took all 85 private schools in Kentucky and we listed out their tuition, public schools would be the 5th most expensive school in the state. I mean, take in our own city here in Lexington, there's a private Christian academy called LCA. Their tuition's around $11,500, $12,000 a year, and we're seeing Lexington public schools spend $17,500. That's $6,000 more, 50% more. That's a fair amount. So when half of our state budget goes to the school system, I think it is more than okay for the state legislators to regulate somewhat of what goes on with the schools. Now, granted, curriculum is set by the site-based councils, which is predominantly teachers, so that is one thing that I know there's a pre-filed bill coming up in this regular session to look at is increasing the number of parents. On that right now, it is, I believe, an administrator, the principal, and 2 teachers, and then 2 parents. The parents have to have kids that go to the school, and they're elected by the parents of kids that go to that school. And if we turn that a little bit, make it 4 parents that are elected by kids that go to that school, have to have kids that go to that school, and then 1 administrator, 2 teachers, so it's predominantly parent, gives more control of parents over the curriculum in that public school. That's an easy, quick, short fix until you get full school choice done. But regardless of that, I think it is more than within the legislators' rights and abilities to regulate on schools, because you're handing, I mean, half of our state budget, guys, we're talking billions of dollars. I mean, Jefferson County Schools alone is almost is like $2 billion. And you're saying that as that money is collected up from the taxpayer, because that's out of our general fund that goes into the SEEK fund, so we all pay for it, you send that money, billions of dollars out, and you can't attach a string to it, like, you can't wear a mask at school, those kinds of things. Now, part of the problem is and I've had this issue too when I see, Stivers out there talking, the Attorney General of Kentucky has a case in front of the Supreme Court right now, the Boone County case. In that case, there was expert testimony heard about masking and the conversation that went on. And it had an IH, an industrial hygienist expert. He testified. That led to a judge's ruling, which verbatim says that wearing a mask to stop COVID is like putting up a chain link fence to stop mosquitoes. This is being argued in front of the Supreme Court. So if you're a Republican AG arguing masks don't work in front of the state Supreme Court, and yet when Stivers goes on TV and they ask him about mask mandates, he says, well, we're not going to do it or anything else, instead of responding with, listen, it's being argued in court right now whether even masks work based upon the expert testimony and what's been allowed. And legally in Kentucky, they don't work. And in fact, if anybody listened to, I just got done listening to the Joe Rogan Dr. Gupta podcast. I encourage you to listen to that. It's kind of interesting. It's interesting how much he doesn't know. Even he admits, he's like, no, these cloth masks, these surgical masks, they really don't do anything. You need to wear a KN95 mask to get any kind of stoppage. And that's coming from the CNN doctor saying that, listen, you need to be wearing KN95 masks. So not only is these masks not super useful, but also additionally, they do have negative effects on children. So I believe it is more than within the purview of the legislators, if they wanted to tackle that issue, to do that. But they didn't, and they punted it down locally. And instead of just being, when they're asked about, saying, listen, we didn't want to tackle that issue, they say, well, we pass it down to local government for local control, and suddenly they're small government people. Now, granted, I don't know, take that how you will, take it how you will. But so that's one of the things they did that's kind of iffy. But going back to this Ford deal, so what exactly was struck there? So what happened is there was a company. Now, the key thing to know about this vote that occurred was that when this vote took place, the legislators had no idea who the company is, right? So even these legislators that are out there saying, look at us, we got Ford in, look at what we're doing, unless they were one of the 3 or 4 in leadership that got signed the NDA and got signed in, they had no idea who they were giving money to in the first place. That's right. All but like 5 legislators. So 5 or 6 legislators voted no or didn't vote at all out of the entire 138. So we had basically around 130 legislators vote yes to giving an unknown company $410 million. They had no idea who this company is. They were just taking it on faith from the Beshear administration and 2 or 3 people of leadership who got read in on what was going on, which shows another greater issue going on in our state legislature. It shows you the amount of power these party people have, this party apparatus, well, not really party, but this leadership apparatus, not party, party is nothing but a platform, but the leadership apparatus going on that the taxpayer, you the taxpayer, $410 million of your dollars can be given out based upon them only needing to tell like 4 or 5 legislators what was going on, then they're able to convince almost every single other legislator to vote yes on giving an unknown company $410 million. That's a problem. That's a bigger issue, I think, than anything else. And you can tell me if you think I'm wrong. You can tell me if you think I'm crazy there. But left, right, center, it doesn't matter. Any legislator voting to give hundreds of millions of dollars without knowing who to whom is pretty irresponsible. And I will always believe that. No matter how great the Ford thing turns out, I will always believe the fact they didn't know who it was a problem. And then I also asked the fact, too, why was it such a secret to begin with? If a company wants to come to Kentucky, and in order to come to Kentucky, they want to ask our state government for $410 million. Now, they don't get all this directly. $350 million of it is a forgivable loan. As long as they invest a certain amount, they get the money forgiven to them. And then there's, the payoff of the property that's going to be given to them, as well as building out some training facilities from KCTC to go on and some other things. Which, while we're on the subject of the corruption of the matter, let's not forget the head of the economic cabinet under Beshear also owns land adjacent to this property, as well as owns a warehousing company that is but 4 or 5 miles down the road. In fact, he has such a special interest, such an issue with this, that the ethics committee has already told him, hey, you should probably not stay involved in this deal. But yet, he did. And so he has profited, he's probably going to profit millions off of it, the head of the economic cabinet, putting that to the side. So, anyway, so you got this deal coming down the pipe. They have no idea what it is. They vote to give $410 million on the word of a couple of people in the Beshear administration. And they say, okay, we're going to give them that taxpayer funds. And, here's the deal. One of the things is vetting the opportunity, right? So what Ford is bringing is a battery plant. There are some issues. For those of you who are unaware, I was reading a study the other day. So I guess, and this is based on what the study says, if I'm wrong at all, feel free to correct me. But I guess that when power companies are designing the grid and the power producing, they plan on a house using 100 amps of power at a time. And apparently, when a Tesla or some other electric vehicle comes in and it's plugged in, it uses 75 amps. So when they have allotted 100 amps per house, and when you plug in an electric car, the use of ampage to charge it ends up using 75% of the allotted ampage for that house. Now, this becomes a problem when you have large amounts of people driving electric vehicles, and they all come home at the same time, and they all plug in their vehicles at 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon in the garage, and now every single house on the block, they're also coming in, they're kicking on the AC, they're cooking dinner, they're doing everything else, they're doing laundry, and now you've got this pool on the grid of everybody with their electric vehicles plugged in, pulling 75% of the power to begin with for their home, and they're going to go over. And it's been long acknowledged by experts that as electric vehicle goes up, we're going to have to invest millions of dollars into upgrading our grids, our electrical system. We've all seen how long, Eastern Kentucky's still waiting to get broadband. Do you think they're going to be quick on the list to get their power infrastructure upgraded? Of course not. They're not going to be benefiting from these electric vehicles, right? So it becomes quite a concern. But even putting that aside, let's say, because Ford wants this plant built by 2025, manufacturing batteries, so, Beshear and all these people claiming a great success on it, this won't play out probably whether it was a success or not, probably for another 7-8 years. And, of course, most of them will be long out of office, so they can throw themselves a little party, pat themselves on the back, and then a couple years down the road, when either they're not in office or it doesn't matter to them anymore, it could go south, and they'll be nowhere to be seen if it goes south. Granted, I'm hopeful it doesn't. But it could, because one, if the lack of upgrading of our infrastructural grid leads to less electric vehicles being built, the project is going to flounder, not nearly do what it does. But also as well, let's keep in mind, we get $410 million to Ford to get the battery plant. Down in Tennessee, they're getting the Blue Oval City, which is manufacturing these electric vehicles. And they had to give Ford, they gave Ford $500 million. Now, you may be asking yourself, why are we giving $410 million to the 13th richest company in the world? Ford is the 13th richest company in the world, Fortune 500, it's 13th. and we're giving it 410 million of your dollars. Right? Why are we doing that? Well, they say we have to do that to compete with the other states, and that may be true. But let's take a look at Tennessee. They gave them 500 million. They're estimated to bring in 28,000 jobs. Now, that is the jobs at the factory and the auxiliary jobs. And I may be asking yourself, well, Andrew, you're not counting the auxiliary jobs that will be brought in by the Ford plant. Well, the problem is the Ford plant we're getting, the battery plant, that is a parts manufacturer. It doesn't have a lot of auxiliary things, but down in Tennessee, where they're actually building the truck, it's going to bring in several other things. Like, for example, Toyota doesn't manufacture their own hubs, their own roofs, their own things. They just kind of assemble it all, and then factories go in around them, and some of you are aware of this, that build those components and those parts, and then ship it over to the Toyota plant. So they build their plants close to save on shipping, manufacture the parts, ship them over there just a little couple miles down the road to the Toyota plant, go on about their day. And so you're going to get those jobs at the Ford plant in Tennessee. You're not going to get those at the battery plant because it doesn't have that many auxiliary parts that need to be manufactured in the area like we're going to see out of the Ford plant there in Tennessee. So they get, for $90 million, they're getting tons more jobs, it looks like. But on top of that, Tennessee's bringing in quite a lot of companies. I mean, Smith & Wesson announced they'd be moving to Tennessee, bringing in quite a bit. This gives you a lesson to look at. Now, to be clear here, what would I do in this situation? Well, first, I'm a Republican, and I believe in the Republican Party platform. And the Republican Party platform says quite clearly that government cannot create economic opportunity, but can only stifle it. It also says we're against corporate welfare, and I don't understand how a bunch of Republicans can give $410 million to the 13th richest company in the world and not call that corporate welfare that violates their own party platform, and then chastise us for even bothering to bring up that it may not be the win that they think it might be, or that we have some sort of issue with it as Republicans are shocked by it. You shouldn't be that shocked that Republicans may be bothered by this, because it's in our platform. We're against this kind of stuff because it never seems to turn out good. But maybe it will in this case. But more importantly, so you say, what would you do? Well, first, recognize, why do we need to give $410 million to a company? Do we have an economic situation here in the state that means that prohibits other companies from moving in? Because they're parading themselves for bringing in 5,000 jobs. But if we had enough good-paying jobs for everybody to work in Kentucky, assuming they can find the labor, assuming we have the people looking for the jobs, assuming all those things, we wouldn't need something like this Ford plant. It wouldn't be a win. It wouldn't be desirable. It wouldn't be necessary. We have plenty of high-paying jobs. So what do? Well, we need to create a better economic environment. And then that, in turn, doesn't just benefit the 13th richest company in the world, but it'll benefit business owners like me, like you, like other people, like your friends, like your family, that own small businesses that have better business environments. That includes lower licensing, better taxing, corporate policies, better property taxing, better access to trades like HVAC, plumbing, and as such as necessary for buildings and things to operate, stronger infrastructure. Those are the things that we should be spending money on as a government, infrastructure to help bring in the businesses, working on how do we lower our taxes and create a better corporate taxing policy here in the state, getting rid of income tax to possibly alleviate some of that too as well. That brings in people. I mean, let's keep in mind. So, right now, LLCs are a pass-through, right? So I can count my LLC's incomes as my income, right? I don't have to just, the LLC files taxes and I file taxes, right? So if you don't have an income tax like you have in Tennessee or things like that, that helps out a lot of these small businesses that are treating their LLCs as a pass-through, because it lowers their overall taxes on the business, which gives them more money that they invest in the community. And for a lot of people that sit there and it's like, I don't invest in the community. Trust me, we don't hoard it. We don't sit on it. We definitely spend it, and we invest it back into growth and into hiring more people, and as far as that goes, right? But anyways, so looking at better taxing policies, looking at better economic opportunities for everybody, not just Ford, and those are the kinds of things I'd be looking for. But maybe this turns out great and it ends up being a big win overall. I don't know. They seem to be pretty sure of it, but geez, we've also seen them to be pretty sure of a lot of other economic deals that have went quite badly. So it's kind of iffy stuff. So let's talk about the bads, like just straight up bads. One is they extended the emergency. Now, I know a lot of people look at this extending of the emergency as the worst, the worst, the worst. I understand the thought process of saying, listen, if we don't have an emergency declared in the state, we can't bring in those federal dollars. I get that. It also buys into this idea, though, that we're in an emergency, and at this point, it's been 2 years. It's hard to call it an emergency. We should be planning out these things, not needing emergency powers into being an emergency. We also need to be weaning ourselves off of these federal extra dollars coming in. Republican states as a whole need to come together and wean ourselves off of these dollars, because it is going to be it's causing this massive inflation going on. They're pumping millions on millions of dollars out there, and these Republican states, like ours, are voting to stay in emergency so we can still pick up that money, rather than saying, no, stop it, federal government. We need to make a plan to get off this money. We need a chance to go back to quote unquote normal, whatever you want to call that. We need to stop bringing this money in. We need a plan. We need a plan. And there wasn't one in there. And that, I think, was a bad. The other thing is they could have dealt with these hospital mandates. Now, a lot of people I know will sit there and we'll talk about these mandates as far as they go. And I am not one to want to tell private businesses what to do. I do not. They're a private business. They're free to do what they want to do, right? I cannot sit there and say I'm against the government mandating my business to do something, to not just turn around and want to not just turn around and want to mandate a business to do something else. However, let's not pretend for 1 second that these businesses are doing this because they want to. I mean, the CEO of Southwest came on and said, Joe Biden is making me do this. We have our own hospitals here that have said to many individuals, we are out here and we are being forced into this by Beshear. They haven't said it publicly, but they say it to legislators. I've gotten several legislators telling me these hospitals are being told by Beshear to do this. And so it's not free and private. And you may ask yourself, these businesses, as far as they go, are they private even when it comes to hospitals? Let's talk about that. So hospitals, first, UK, U of L, those kinds of hospitals, those are clearly owned by the state. So we have every right to regulate them however we want to. They're owned by the state. It is the legislator's job to regulate those hospitals. But on top of that, when it comes to these private hospitals, let's remember we have certificate of need laws in the state. A hospital cannot add a location, add beds, buy a significant amount of equipment without first asking for permission from the government to do it. And so the threat doesn't even just need to be implied, it's clearly there. I mean, we just saw the governor shut down what he deemed as non-essential surgeries in the state that led to a lot of employees being laid off. They didn't come back, leading to our issue now. And actually, a couple hospitals closed because of those executive orders he's made. And they're frightful and fearful he's going to do it again. They're not making a free and private decision as a private business. They're being forced into it. And so that's quite an issue. And that is something that we need to look at. And I think the easiest way to solve that, in this last session, we gave $69 million to the hospitals. We could have simply stated, hey, listen, if you want any of that money, you can't be mandating it. If you're a private business and you're making decisions on your own, make those decisions, but stop asking the taxpayer to fund it when it goes bad for you. Stop running to us, asking us, because we have legislators right now out there asking for another session to give $100 million to these hospitals to help pay for these mandates they're putting in place. And it's all because they are short on staff because they're firing people. And then they want us, the taxpayer, to pay for it, but then they want to claim we're a private business. You can't regulate us. You don't get it both ways. I am free as a business to make my decisions, or I should be, but I also shouldn't be turning around and asking the taxpayer to fund those and cover the cost. That's wrong. And it leaves an opportunity for our legislators to address this and push back against Beshear's tyrannical overreach. But they failed to do it. And they're creating more of an opportunity and more of a business climate that looks at mandating their staff do something because it's a cool thing to do right now. And any legislators any politicians out there calling to give more money to these hospitals to help with staffing without also demanding they stop the mandates if they need bailed out is in the wrong. And you are in the wrong. Especially if you're going to call yourself a Republican while you're doing it. Well, hey guys, thank you so much for joining me. Remember to donate to the campaign if you can. That is CooperWriter4KY.com/donate. CooperWriter4KY.com/donate. Thank you guys so much.